Good morning. Ooh, don't you love, don't you love when someone can say good morning to you and really mean it? Today is an excellent morning, my friends. And I just want to say the reason why is that Donald Trump has no immunity. Boom, bam. This is amazing. Donald Trump has no immunity in the New York criminal case for which a jury found him guilty on 34 felony counts. Let me read you the headline from CNN last night, and this is across all news sources, national news, local news, print media, internet, me chatting at you through YouTube. A judge ruled that Trump does not have immunity from his hush money conviction. So that is our lead story of the day. But don't worry, we have so much more in store for you. I have Walt Disney Corporation settling the biggest wage theft case in history. So much more to talk to you about. Of course, we have our hero of the day and some crazy town that is crazier than usual. So let's start talking about the Donald Trump immunity case. Now, remember, the US Supreme Court in early July decided that a president, namely Donald Trump in this instance, is immune even when he is out of office after he serves from criminal conviction for certain types of conduct that I will just call bundled together official conduct. And then anything that is unofficial conduct is fair game for criminal conviction, right? Now, that is what the US Supreme Court decided. Now, Judge Juan Merchan last night, the judge presiding over Donald Trump's criminal case and that hush money payment case that we also refer to as the business falsification case. This is where he facilitated and covered up payments made to Stormy Daniels, the adult film star with whom he had an extramarital affair prior to many years before running for office. This was a felony conviction by a jury in which Donald Trump, again on 34 counts, was found guilty to have falsified his business records for the purpose of interfering in the 2016 election. That is the sort of the bottom line in that case. And even though this case was tried earlier this year and a jury found again Donald Trump guilty, the New York jury, on 34 felony counts, the sentencing has been put on hold because of a number of factors, the most central of which was the subsequent July 1st US Supreme Court decision saying that presidents have a whole category of immunity. And what has been happening since then has been, first postponement of the settlement. And then recently, the judge asked for briefings in light of Donald Trump's motions to dismiss the case because he says he's immune. The judge heard arguments from the prosecution, which is DA Alvin Bragg's office, District Attorney of Manhattan, and also heard arguments from Donald Trump's lawyers. And what came down yesterday, guys, was this 41-page decision and order in which the judge said, I've read the arguments, I've studied the law, and I have decided to reject Donald Trump's arguments here that he is not immune. Now, it's a little more nuanced, and you're here on this show to hear nuance, right? So I want to explain it to you in a really basic way that will help you understand that it's quite likely this decision will hold up first. And secondly, the most important thing is now there is nothing stopping Judge Merchan from scheduling the sentencing now. scheduling it now, right? If I were him, I would schedule it now before the end of the year. We will see if he can do this and if anyone will stand in his way. But remember, people are often sentenced, and the sentences, once they're made, can be suspended or not suspended pending appeal. Of course, Donald Trump is going to appeal Judge Merchan's decision. He is a trial court judge in New York. That will go all the way up through the New York appellate system. And then after that, he may go up to the United States Supreme Court, or he may try to skip the court system first. I don't think that's possible. That's not usually the way, but the Supreme Court does stuff that's not usually the way when it comes to Donald Trump. Okay. But keep in mind, appealing this decision, right? Merchan said Donald Trump is not immune. The case is not dismissed. That is separate, and that appeal can go on simultaneously while Donald Trump is sentenced and serves his sentence. So there's two questions I have now. One, will the sentencing be scheduled, and for when? Or is it going to be postponed for 4 years, 4+ years? That is not justice. The judge could bifurcate this. The judge could establish a sentencing date, sentence him before he serves office, and even require him to serve that sentence now or postpone the sentence. So there's two different things. There's sentencing him, and then there's serving the sentence. Those are two different things. Why am I so hot to trot on the sentencing? Because the way New York law works is until he is actually sentenced, we can't legally, officially call him a convict, right? Yes, he has been found guilty on 34 felony counts, but he has not been sentenced. So it's my understanding that is a key factor in calling Donald Trump a felon, a convict. And what will flow from that depends upon the jurisdictions in the world and within the United States where there are restrictions on the activities and movement of felons. If he is a convicted felon, is he forbidden to travel to certain countries abroad? Will they have to make particular permission to allow him to go there? This kind of legal question and practical question is thrilling to me. Anything we can do to hold this man accountable for his crimes is something we do to preserve the rule of law and our democracy and to not obey in advance. Okay, so that is the basics of what I am telling you. But let me share for you a little nuance, because I think nuance is good for you. Now, you know that I have dropped into the chat, and I will do it, or maybe Susan or one of the other mods can paste it again for me. The link, if you want to follow along at home, of the 41-page decision. Trust me, this is not going to be a law school class. I'm only going to give you the last page, guys. Don't worry here for our discussion. And what I want to say here is this is, as I noted, the very last page. And what you can see here on the very last page is that it was signed yesterday, December 16th, 2024, by Judge Juan M. Merchan. He is a judge of the Court of Claims, and he is an acting justice of the Supreme Court. Now, I don't know if you know this. I know I've repeated it many times, but just so you are reminded, the New York Supreme Court is actually the trial court. Now, what this does is basically, and I'm just going to make it a bit smaller for you. 1 second, because I just want to, I'm just going to go back to what's going on here. What that last page does, if you are looking for it, is that it says that essentially we understand, judge says, I understand what the United States Supreme Court said, and I am applying the doctrine from the immunity case. And what the United States Supreme Court said is conduct which is in the core of the presidential's constitutional duties is completely immune, period, end of story. So Judge Juan Merchan looked through the conduct, and nothing in there was at the core. And in fact, Donald Trump's lawyers didn't argue that. Now, also, second category, the U.S. Supreme Court said, okay, even official conduct that's not at the core of the president's responsibilities, but that's at the periphery. We need to think about that. So with that kind of activity, so at the core would be like the pardon power, running the department, overseeing the military, Department of Defense, that's fully protected. But there's this twilight zone of activity that is the president doing his job, but is not at the core. And with regard to that sort of middle category, the Supreme Court said, we will give any president the presumption of immunity. However, that presumption of immunity can be overcome. And specifically, it can be overcome, this presumption of immunity. And this appears on this last page that we were looking at. And I will pull that up right here. And I will blow that up for you right now. And what the court is saying, okay, the court says a couple things. One, first of all, they think Donald Trump waived these arguments because he sat on them. But even if they were preserved, they said that none of what happened here involved official conduct. It's all unofficial conduct, and therefore it's entitled to no immunity protections. That's the baseline. But then the court makes what's called an argument in the alternative. And the argument in the alternative is that even if there is some official conduct that became part of the record in this case, part of the testimony in this case, that is not, even though it's, again, could be official conduct, like the president speaking with Hope Hicks as one example. Even if that, you could classify that as official conduct entitled to a presumption of immunity. He concludes that the government has overcome that presumption, that even if it's in that outer perimeter, and this is the standard, the Supreme Court would argue that the government, in this case, the people of New York, being able to use these acts as evidence, like the communication with Hope Hicks as evidence. And I'm quoting him here, using these acts as evidence of the decidedly personal acts of falsifying business records poses no danger of intrusion on the authority and function of the executive branch. Okay, so that is the standard, right? Any little bit of conduct that transpired when he was in office, this judge does not think, this judge is pretty clear here. This judge does not think that qualifies, my friends, for even official conduct. But if a higher judge were to say, well, that's on the outer perimeter when he's talking to Hope Hicks when he did that, the judge is saying, the presumption of immunity should be overcome because it's not intruding on the prerogatives of the president if he's discussing covering up an extramarital affair and how he did that in retrospect. Okay, boom. Now, the third piece of this is in the alternative, in the third level of this, because this is what courts do. They say, even if a judge above were to say, yes, Donald Trump preserved these arguments. Yes, some of the conduct that came into evidence was within the outer perimeter. And yes, maybe some of the outer perimeter of evidence might intrude on the president. And it might not be, that might not be cool. The judge concludes with, it doesn't matter. It's what's called harmless error, and the verdict should be held up. Okay, so that is what the judge did. Okay, there's layers of this. Now I'm seeing in the chat people saying, oh, Donald Trump doesn't care. I don't care that he doesn't care, because that is not what the rule of law is about. Someone being put in prison for crimes that they committed after a sentencing may not care, because they may be getting out in a few years with all their money. But that's not what the rule of law is about. You don't decide, well, you know what? We don't need to sentence people who actually don't care. You know what? If all you have to do is say, I don't care, and then therefore a judge will not sentence you, what is that? Now, before we leave this topic, what next? Like I said, just to repeat you, there are two things that could happen next. Now, my God, there are many things that could happen next. Okay. So, and I want to say this, and I think this is important. I'm a far better prognosticator about what will happen in the legal realm. It's because I've had more experience in the legal realm. This is the moment to say I was completely wrong when I thought Kamala Harris would win and win many states that were swing states. I was wrong. And I think I've learned that it's best that I stay in my lane of corporate and white collar crime and telling you what courts will do, given that that is my training. Not to, mention it again, but I will. Undergraduate, I was an English major. I attended law school at Harvard, as Elle Woods would say, attended and graduated cum laude. But anyways, Elle Woods would say, like it's hard. And after that, practiced law at a major corporate law firm in New York, went in-house, was most recently in-house counsel at Fidelity Investments, where I was an associate general counsel and also an officer on the board. An officer of the fixed income funds. And I don't know, I could go on and on about this, but the bottom, and now, of course, I am a law professor, and I've written 2 books and many articles. One of the books is on the causes and responses to the 2008 financial crisis, hint, hint, deregulation, another book on white collar crime. So I have decided, not that I won't talk about politics based on my own feelings and desires, but I'm not going to opine on politics like other armchair experts who actually don't have experience running campaigns and are just wish casting. I will let you know when I'm wish casting, but when I'm talking about legal stuff, I'm pretty confident that, about my prediction. So my prediction is, with Donald Trump, who knows? But the most likely path forward at this point is Donald Trump will appeal this decision. But in the meantime, right now, all eyes on Judge Juan Merchan, who has to decide whether he is going to schedule the sentencing for now or postpone it. A lot of that depends on what Alvin Bragg wants, what the judge wants to do, what any laws are in New York about notice before sentencing, if there is any particular special rule that I don't know about. Okay, so step 1 is he going to schedule a sentencing date? And if so, will it be before the end of the year or before the inauguration? That's question 1. Question 2 is, if there is a sentencing date, will it go forward, notwithstanding the appeal and any other shenanigans? And thirdly, if the sentencing does go forward at any point now, going forward, let's hope this month or early January, if the sentencing does go forward, what would be in store for Donald Trump? What would that sentence look like? Finally, would he have to serve that sentence now? And maybe the sentence wouldn't have any incarceration anyway. And then the final question is, assuming all that is true, what will the impact be if this sentencing goes forward in terms of Donald Trump being a convicted felon before he enters the White House? Those are questions I have. There could be any number of things that this step-by-step process I'm talking about that could happen to derail it. But right now, all eyes are on Judge Juan Merchan. Okay, our next story of the day. And actually, you know what? Before I jump to that next story, guys, I have not been following the chat. I am now asking folks or looking into the chat to see what everyone has to say. Okay. And I see, let me show this. Hey, Glenna, please sentence that man. Keep him out of Canada and other countries with restrictions on convicted felons. Okay. I'm hearing, some unrelated comment, but I'll get to that. I'm hearing Susie Jones saying that a Black man was sentenced to 10 years yesterday for similar crimes. Yes, there are double standards and the system is rigged. I like this from Cheryl Simpson. So the courts aren't for the people is the message they are trying to tell the world. Well, in this case, this judge is doing the right thing. I see someone else trying to say minimum 30 days in jail immediately. Oh, Brandon Woods, thank you. Your book is spot on about the banking world, and it's in the law. We are heading into a second banking collapse. Oh gosh, let's hope not. Or maybe that is the plan because Donald Trump and his friends are so highly and heavily invested in crypto. It's going to be an interesting world. Now, I also see I want sentencing. Hello. And oh, Susan, you're very sweet. That my book, Big Dirty Money, is excellent. Very nice. Okay. So guys, this is also a moment where I want to say, I am on a board of advisors at a really incredible organization called Better Markets. And one thing that Better Markets has done before, during, and after the 2008 crisis and the enactment of Dodd-Frank is to try to provide clear-headed expert information. They also bring litigation and testimony of experts before congressional hearings when issues of deregulation arise. Now, when I testified before Senate and House committees, I was invited on my own, not because of my affiliation with Better Markets, which I did not have at that time. At any rate, what's important to me is, at least as we move into the Donald Trump administration and what they're going to be doing, is to try to pick and choose carefully my battles. And, the other day I was mentioning, oh, now they're talking about abolishing the FDIC. Well, that would take an act of Congress. It doesn't seem likely, right? But I want to be sure to acknowledge for you what is happening, but also focus on not getting, it's that Overton window thing where we look at something so extreme that when they don't do the super, super extreme thing and they do something super, super stupid, we've wasted our time on the extreme and not done the harder work, the thinking and the writing and the advocating around behind the scenes and in front of Congress, so that we don't do the stupid just because the stupid is less crazy than the outlandish. I think I said that the right way. Okay. Now, I also want to say to you, guys, that I want to thank you, because I'm not actually looking. We're going to get to the Disney wage theft, but real quick, I can't believe it, but I think we have crossed over into the 8,000 pre-subscriber range, which is huge because it makes me happy. It makes us a larger community, and it makes what we're trying to do here with an honest assessment of legal and political. But I think I'm going to change, my heading, because it's not really commentary on law and politics. It's more sort of law and corruption. I'll fix that, right? What we're doing here, I think, is unique. You're part of the community. We're taking a deeper dive into stories that are in the headlines, but also talking about things that are not being covered. Okay, so thank you for that. Now, let us talk about, this is also, oops, sorry. I did. I feel like Sally Field. I don't want to do the embarrassing, you like me, but I have to do the ironic. Okay, guys, Susan Thompson, one of our mods, is saying this. Here is a link. She put it in the chat to your elected officials. Let them know you're here. Say hi. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. Happy Kwanzaa. Happy, Festivus, whatever you want to say. Say, I'm not asking you to do anything yet. And especially someone who's going to still be, in the state or in the federal government. Say, hi, I'm here. Glad you represent me. I'll be knocking at your door, calling your office. Just say hello. Say something nice. Make them feel better. Wish them well, because they have a hard fight ahead of them. They need encouragement and support, not just you calling when you need something from them. Okay. So let us talk about Walt Disney. This is kind of crazy. So I don't know if you saw this story the other day, but I don't want you to confuse this with ABC. Okay, so I want you to, let me just back up. You know that ABC News, which is a subsidiary, meaning it's owned by its parent company, Walt Disney, that ABC entered into a ridiculous settlement. We talked about it yesterday, and they're planning to give $15 million to Donald Trump's presidential library. Now, we can make all kinds of jokes about the presidential library. We've already bashed ABC for obeying in advance. But what I want to point out to you is that got a fuck ton more attention than Disney paying, again, Disney Corporation is the parent of ABC News. I don't know which division of Disney agreed to this settlement, but it's part of the same big family. So Disney, Walt Disney, not the man, the entity, agreed to pay $233 million. Agreed to pay $233 million to settle a wage theft case. It was a class action lawsuit. Why is that not getting more attention? It actually really helps people to know about this. Maybe, I don't know why. I haven't heard much news about it. But then again, I'm not really turning on my cable television. So maybe you guys have heard about it. So let me tell you a little bit more about this case. So this is Disneyland, which is a subsidiary. Well, Disneyland, as you know, you probably know this, Disneyland is the theme park in California, with Disney World being the theme park in Florida, etc. So Disneyland agreed to settle a class action lawsuit involving $23 million. And what happened is, in this lawsuit, it was alleged that the park employees, and they're known as cast members, were not paid the required minimum wage or didn't benefit from the minimum wage that the city of Anaheim had passed. And as a result, this was first reported on Friday. I know today is Tuesday. Sorry, guys. As a result, Walt Disney Company approved this settlement preliminarily. Now, you need the judge to sign off on it. What this does is it gives back pay plus interest to 50,000 Disney employees. These are current and former Disney employees. 50,000 employees. And the judge is going to review it, and it may be done by January 17th. Now, let me tell you what one of these employees said. For Mitch Cordell, a fairy godmother's apprentice, oh my God, so cute, at Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique in Disneyland, said this money, his owed back pay and interest, he described it as life-changing, my friends. He said, this money is life-changing for a lot of Disney cast members and will make a tremendous difference for me and my family. He said in his statement, I have 2 small children, and getting potentially thousands of dollars in back wages I'm rightfully owed gives me peace of mind that I have money in case of an emergency or savings for the future. We've shown throughout these 5 years, this is the fight, and then especially this last year in contract negotiations, that when we stand up for what we deserve together, we can accomplish anything. Wow, really the Magic Kingdom. Now, what is this about? In 2018, voters in Anaheim had passed this $15 minimum wage law, and it was supposed to apply to any company that has a resort in Anaheim that enjoyed a tax rebate with the city. And anyhow, what happened next is Disney was like, I don't want that tax rebate, and tried to get out of it. Bottom line is Disney lost. The mouse lost. Now, this is unbelievable, right? This is, as I said, was like over $200 million affecting 50,000 employees. And the deal is, friends, what I want to say to you about that, however, is that seems like a lot of money. And it really is a lot of money. But I want to remind you, because I do teach corporation law, that there was a time when Disney, it's a famous Delaware case involving executive compensation. It's like the poster child for executive compensation. We teach this case. This is a case that at Walt Disney, there was a person hired. His name was Michael Ovitz, to work at Walt Disney, and he basically so Michael Ovitz was hired by Disney, and it just didn't work out. Let's just put it that way. And basically, he was hired to be the president of Disney, and he was under the CEO of Disney at the time. And he was hired. So the CEO was Michael Eisner. Michael Eisner needed someone to work beneath him or for him, and that was Michael Ovitz, who was a former talent agent. And there were so many personal clashes that what ended up happening is that Eisner fires Ovitz, says, "We can't deal with you," after just 14 months. And the contract under which Ovitz was hired allowed him to walk away with a pay for failure, essentially, package, walk away with $140 million for 14 months' pay, one man. And this pay package was challenged by the shareholders as a breach of fiduciary duty involving, both the fact that they hired this guy, and how could you hire someone that has so many character flaws or can't get along with people or whatever it was that they had the reason to fire him, hiring him, agreeing to pay him that much money if they fired him, and then firing him. All of that was examined. At the end of the day, let me just boil it down to the fact that pay, that golden parachute for 14 months work was upheld in Delaware, $140 million. So when I see Disney paying $233 million to 50,000 employees due to years of wage theft, I like to put it in that context of crazy inequality in America. Okay, guys, now got two more things for you. I always learn so much from my kids, and I mean my own children, my two children, as well as the students who come through my classroom and office over the years. In this case, my oldest daughter, Emily, and I were on the phone, and we were talking. We had some topic we were talking about, and she is the one getting a master's in physics. And no, I don't even know how to spell the word physics. But at any rate, it involves neutrinos and something in the South Pole and something else in a lot of math. And I'm very proud of her. But at any rate, we are talking, and I mentioned Asberger Syndrome, and this whole idea of, I think you've heard of it, this idea of being on the autism spectrum, and there's this category. We just throw this term out, Asberger Syndrome, named after some dude named Asperger, right? I haven't thought about it. And Emily was like, "Time out, Mom." She didn't say it like that. She goes, "We don't use that term." No, what she said is, "That's made up." So I probed a little more. What do you mean it's made up? And I come to find out that it's been years since Asperger's has been examined and exposed. And I shouldn't say exposed, and people have become aware about Asperger. And some of you may know where this is going. This is where I want to share my screen. This is courtesy of my daughter, Emily. She didn't share the article with you, but of course, that is what I am going to do. Okay, so the question is, was Dr. Asberger's a Nazi? The question still haunts autism. And he was a doctor at a children's clinic in Vienna in the 1930s. And there was a history of him published, written by John Donovan and Karen Zucker. I'm reading you from an article from 2016, almost a decade ago, the beginning of 2016. And this history has reported, according to this NPR story, that this so-called pioneering Viennese pediatrician, the question is, was he a Nazi sympathizer or a man who paid lip service to his boss's murderous ideology in order to save the lives of as many of his patients as possible? And basically, he had been doing work on autism, and too long didn't read that article. What my kid told me yesterday is, before the full on Holocaust led by Hitler and the Nazis, they were already with their eugenicist vision, wanting to kill, there's no other way to say it, children with autism and people with mental disabilities. And this was part of the plan and part of what happened throughout the Nazi reign, and even in the death camps as well. And supposedly, what Asperger's did is he classified one group of kids with autism, said, well, these can have their lives spared. So I guess the question is, was that something good to try to at least save lives, or did it actually facilitate and enable the murder of others of his patients? So at this point in time, I will not use the term Asperger's anyway. You're welcome for this service message. Okay, public service message courtesy of Emily. Now, again, lawyer here, not doctor, just telling you what my kid said and reading you briefly from that NPR story. Have not read the history, just throwing that out into the conversation so we can all do more research before we throw that term around. Now, that brings us to who is obviously hero of the day, and that is Judge Juan Merchan. We've talked about why he is hero of the day, but we shouldn't even have to call a judge doing his job hero of the day. But I will, because he is doing the hard work the appropriate way, doing the legal analysis under the standards and rules sent down to him by the United States Supreme Court, even if we think the decision was corrupt and wrong. And now he is, I hope, going to step forward and schedule a sentencing. Again, assuming again that that's what New York law would allow him to do. And I also hope that even if Alvin Bragg says, which I don't think he will, it's cool with me, Judge, if you don't sentence him now, I hope that Merchan moves forward with the sentencing. That is why I am calling him hero of the day. Okay, guys. And thank you. That brings us to Crazy Town. You can't make this up. Crazy Town today. Crazy Town is something that we had to hear from the FBI in Newark and the New Jersey State Police. Okay, here is the announcement. FBI Newark warns public against pointing lasers at manned aircraft or shooting down suspected UAS, unmanned aircraft systems, meaning drones. Okay, you know those laser pointers? You shouldn't point them in the eyes of pilots of planes. And my God, you should not put a gun into the air and shoot at the sky. That is the bottom line. Let me read this to you. Crazy Town. Okay. The FBI and the New Jersey State Police want to warn the public about an increase in pilots of manned aircraft. Manned aircraft, these are planes hit in the eyes with lasers because people on the ground think they see a drone, an unmanned aircraft system. There is also a concern with people possibly firing weapons at what they believe to be a UAS, but could actually be a manned aircraft. The FBI Newark, the New Jersey State Police, and dozens of other agencies and their law enforcement partners have been out every night for several weeks to legally track down operators of these drones, and they're trying to deal with that, right? But this could be dangerous if they are targeted, if people are either sending laser pointers into the eyes of pilots or shooting up into the sky. There's more. Misidentification often occurs when drones are mistaken for more familiar objects such as manned aircrafts, low orbit satellites, or celestial bodies like planets or stars. Yes, Larry Hogan, Orion, study your constellations. In other words, and this is my little footnote, please don't shoot at the Big Dipper. Okay, to improve accuracy and prevent false sightings, a variety of tools and techniques can be used to assist with the visual identification of these suspected UAS drones, essentially. Accurate identification is critical for maintaining safety and ensuring appropriate responses to this activity. And finally, there are many different websites and mobile applications the public can access through various governmental agencies and private companies that show flight paths for manned aircrafts and satellites in the Earth's orbit and stars and planets visible on a given evening that can help determine, my friends, if what you are seeing is the Little Dipper, the Big Dipper, Orion, the North Star, an airplane, the satellite that's flying overhead so you can actually watch television. Okay, crazy, crazy, crazy. I will see you tomorrow at 8:30 right here.